joins us once a week, and today is the day. She joins us from our nation's capital. Laura, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What a beautiful sun today.
I know, the moon.
That's crazy.
By the way, guys, as someone who's, had some issues with bad mics before, I felt bad for Nancy Pelosi for about 8 or 9 seconds.
Is your fallback this land is your land?
Yeah, no, I just cry out Wolverines from Red Dawn.
What was your thought, Laura, last night when Sally Yates was fired?
Well, here's what I want to say right off the bat. First of all, I was on Hannity at 10:45 on the phone last night trying to explain this to people because historians, so-called historians, were on television last night supposedly drawing parallels to the Saturday Night Massacre from October 1973. Watergate. Now, get this. We had people actually saying that the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General in 1973's refusing to fire on President Nixon's orders the special prosecutor who was investigating the Watergate tapes, trying to get the Watergate tapes released and proceeding against Nixon. Their refusing to fire a special prosecutor and resigning was like the President of the United States firing the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, who refused to carry out a both lawful and constitutional move by the President and his administration. Let me just say for everybody watching, there are no parallels to what happened in October of 1973.
They both happened in Washington. That's about it.
No, you guys, this is the most facile and pathetic attempt at both revisiting history and tarring the Trump administration. There is no parallel.
And she was appointed by President Obama. The guys in the Nixon thing, they were appointed by Nixon. They just weren't willing to go along with Watergate. This is totally different. She was appointed by a Democratic president who doesn't agree with the president now.
As Alan Dershowitz, who is no conservative, of course, liberal legal scholar, said last night, he said she was basically practicing, political, she was doing the political hero stuff. Late, as she knew she was going to be leaving at the role of acting Attorney General, she wanted to be the political hero of the moment, or at least that's the way it appeared. But there is no parallel, for all you headline history people out there, there is no parallel between what happened with Richard Nixon and what happened last night. That's the first thing I want to say.
Was some of the fallout with this Friday executive order, was it preventable?
I think you raise an excellent point. There are two separate issues here, both the legality and the constitutionality of what the Trump team did last Friday. That is not in question. 8 U.S.C. Section 1182F gives the president this type of authority to make this type of decision on immigration for the good of the country. He has that authority. Congress also is vested with its own legislative powers over immigration for permanent lawmaking, of course. So, but he has no constitutional or statutory impediment to doing what he did. The other issue, however, is whether this could have been rolled out and maybe telegraphed in a better way, and I think it could have been. It doesn't mean you had to announce to the world what they were doing, but I think it was important for the Trump team to understand they are going to be at war with the media, likely, and the Democrats, and some of the Republican Party every day that they are doing what they said they were going to do on the campaign trail. Every day it's going to be war. So if you know you're going to be at war, how do you roll out something that you know is going to be deemed to be a Muslim ban, even though it's not, deemed to be unconstitutional, even though it's not, deemed to be hateful, even though, in their view, of course, this is very practical. So you have to produce the preface and the pre-production of this. It has to be done, I think, really carefully and really smartly. I think they could have done better on that.
Well, surely. And, the media double standard is what you would expect. Because just go back, keep in mind, there were 109 people in transit, and they were the ones who were temporarily detained. Okay, so 109 versus 91 Cubans who 2 days before the inauguration were sent back to Cuba by Barack Obama's administration. But the left, the mainstream media, nary a word about that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that if I were helping out on communications, that's one of the things that I would point to. Both the Cubans that were sent home and the 812 or 72 refugees that Obama brought in Wednesday before he left office. You got to talk specifically about what the refugee program means to the country, what the positive values that we take in from immigrants and refugees, frankly, and the difficulty that we have with some countries in doing the type of vetting we need to be done, especially with the radicalization that's now happening on the internet. It's a different world than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago with how we look at refugees coming into the United States.
Yeah, and it's a different United States with President Trump. President Obama doesn't like it. He's making that crystal clear just 9 or 10 days after the current president took office. He wrote, President Obama is heartened by the level of engagement taking place in communities around the country. This is exactly what we expect to see when American values are at stake. What's your reaction?
Yeah, American values, controlling your own immigration, controlling your borders, ensuring the safety of the American public. Last time I checked, those were American values, Mr. President. It doesn't surprise me at all. Remember when Barack Obama left office, guys, he made it clear to the activists and the Democrat hardcore base, it was up to them to carry on the community activism and the community organizing that he began early on in his post-Harvard Law School career. And he gave a nod to it. And he said, the fight is now yours, but I'll be back if I see things that are happening that are antithetical for what are shared values. It depends on what your perspective is. I think there are a lot of Americans who are glad that we have a president who is taking immigration and the refugee and asylee programs really seriously.
Laura, in your opinion, does some of the emotion we saw after Donald Trump won in New York City and other major cities, the outrage, and some of the things at airports that we watched over the weekend, is the left giving birth to their own version of the Tea Party?
I think they're trying to. I think that the problem here is both on the constitutional and the statutory level, they're in the wrong. And courts are not going to be able to continue to put these stays into place when the Trump administration is right on the merits. You can argue whether they're doing the best that they can on the communications and messaging side, but on the merits of what they're doing, liberal scholars like Jonathan Turley, Dershowitz, George Terwilliger from the H.W. Bush administration, all of them last night properly said the president is well within his right to do what he did over the past 10 days on this immigration stuff. He said he was going to do this, and he's doing it. But the messaging, I think, can be a lot more positive and not quite so, at times, negative. And I think we could bring people along to understanding what exactly they're doing and why they're doing it in a more helpful way.
Well, they'll figure it out. They're only 10 days into it. Tonight, just about 12 hours from right now, the President of the United States will be in the East Room. He's going to announce his nomination pick for the Supreme Court. But, the Democrats are already bracing for a fight. There's a senator from the great state of Oregon who said, unless it's Merrick Garland, I'm going to filibuster the guy or the gal.
Yeah.
So,
this is part of the ongoing resistance.
The party you know.
Yeah, it's the ongoing resistance. This is why getting the American people to understand why you're doing certain things, whether it's the immigration pause or the refugee pause, or why this particular judicial nominee is best suited for this presidency and this court, I think it's going to be very important. The inside track seems to be with Tom Hardiman from the Third Circuit right now. I've had the pleasure of meeting him, having dinner with him a couple of years ago, and he seems like a terrific person. He has impeccable legal credentials. Neil Gorsuch is someone who also has been mentioned in the last few weeks especially. Some conservatives have concerns about Gorsuch. He clerked for Justice Kennedy. He initially clerked for Byron White when he was the retired justice and was loaned to the Kennedy chambers. And then, of course, Bill Pryor down in Alabama, I think is the conservatives' favorite. He might not be in that final three of consideration at this point. But all bets are off. They could also surprise us, but I think it's probably going to be one of the three.
So they look at everything. When they clerk, that's like right out of
but here's the thing, Ainsley. They'll let anybody clerk for a Supreme Court justice, right, Laura?
Yeah, well,
I'm just kidding.
I slipped in under the radar, guys. They were lucky. I was lucky.
Clarence Thomas.
Laura, thanks so much. We really wore you out today. Thanks so much for your time.
Great to see you.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.